Yeah, that's a hard question for me actually. I struggle to give myself one label both when it comes to what I do professionally, but for a lot of other things in my life. I'm not even sure what to call my personal home. Is it Athens because I grew up there? Is it London because I spent the last 13 years there? Is it Barcelona because that's where I live now? So I feel a little bit like that when it comes to answering the professional home question as well, because some days I'm a product manager, other days I'm a consultant, other days I'm just a kind of data person. And like you say, in the evenings especially, it's more about things like community building. So for me, it very much depends on the context of what I'm doing and who I'm talking to. But most of the time, the title that I'll kind of default to will either be consultant, because that's also the easiest to sort of explain roughly what I do, that it's about going in and helping organizations either transform or just figure out how to do certain things, or product manager, especially if it's someone that sort of understands what a product manager does. And then I'll specify that data and machine learning is the domain that I do my consulting and my product management. But yeah, otherwise it's hard. Uh, the way I found myself working in data product management and having done that for so many years did not did not start intentionally. It was not a plan. It was not what I studied at university. It was based on a series of fortunate events. Uh, I started working at an analytics startup because I thought that would be my way to get into consulting, because the founder was a former strategy consultant. Then I got another job, again, former consultant, started a data science startup slash consultancy, and I joined that as employee number one. Um, so for me, I was seeing it as a consulting job, but I was doing all the work that was happening was data and analytics related. And as the company started growing and we started doing more complex projects and eventually started building an internal product for one of the biggest supermarket chains in the UK, I realized that the random set of things that I was doing actually had a job title, and that it was product manager. And that was after probably about a year doing that role, but thinking, oh, I'm just doing random stuff. Whereas everyone else, they're a data scientist, they're a data engineer, they're a software developer. It was the cause of a little bit of an existential crisis. Like, what am I even doing here? Um, but then after that point, when I started learning about product management as a discipline and doing training and reading books on the subject, I realized that this is really what I want to be doing. And also that data and machine learning was really what I like doing, and I saw a huge potential to transform organizations with that kind of work. I also saw a huge opportunity in data teams specifically needing product management thinking, because it's just too common that you have a sole focus on the technical work without spending enough time engaging with the business, understanding what users need, understanding what kind of training or change management do we need to do to see our solutions adopted. But also, before you do all of those things, actually, what is the work we should be doing? And as a product manager, that's a key activity that you do, right? Half the work you do is before any lines of code get written. So after I discovered product management, and after a few years, the label of data product manager started becoming a thing. Because when I was first doing it, no one really called it that. Ever since then, it's been a much more intentional decision to stay in this field. Whereas it started as a kind of unintended, oh, this is fun, I guess I'll keep doing it. So that's kind of how I'm here. Uh, that's a that's another tough one. Not because I can't think of any, but more because I need to figure out the top three. I'd say first of all, it's that kind of building off what I was saying in the previous question. Too many times, data teams are solely focused on delivery because requirements come from somewhere external to the data team. It's service desk tickets, it's ad hoc requests from the business, and the data team is being very reactive. So for me, that's really important, not just because it means that you're constantly rushing around, you never have time to invest in more long-term things that might be needed, improving data quality, sorting out your processing time, anything that generally is to be done when it feels like you have a bit of downtime, because it's not the urgent thing. It's important, but not urgent. But it also means that by being reactive all the time, teams end up not actually adding very much value. And for me, this is all rooted in the fact that data teams don't do enough discovery work. Sometimes they don't do any discovery work. And that is a key thing that as a product manager, you are doing, right? I spend somewhere between 20 and 80% of my time, depending on the week, doing discovery work. Discovery work can be as simple as just asking a few questions when an incoming request comes through, like what's the business context for why you want this data? What are you planning to do with it? Who will be working with it? Will you be opening it up in Excel? Do you have your own dashboard? Do you need us to create you a dashboard? Or it could be much more complicated. It could be a whole sort of dedicated project that's about going into an organization, running workshops, bringing different people together to really understand what are the opportunities in this organization to really move the needle. Is it about growing revenue by getting more customers through the door, by working with the sales team to help them, for example, target prospects in a more effective way or prioritize their targeting better? Is it more about optimizing things to reduce costs, working with supply chain or with operations? And to give an answer to that, you need to do more than just asking a couple questions or reading a white paper from a consultancy that says, oh, in this industry, this is the use case you should be pursuing, or to just follow what your vendor says. So for me, all of that is one of the most pressing challenges for data product managers, but also for data teams more widely. And I never shut up about it. Then the second challenge that I think is also super, super important is that we don't tend to do very much after we have built whatever it is that we've built. It might be a table, it might be a dashboard, it might be a model, it might be a whole application. And here I'm talking about this in two slightly different ways. The first is just in terms of being there to maintain the product, to improve it over time, because usually version 1 is not going to be the absolute perfect or version with everything that you need. And there'll be a lot of compromises you made to deliver version 1 that you know is fine for now, but you do want to improve it over time. Or by understanding, how are people using it? Is there something we need to do differently? Because maybe adoption is not as high because we didn't think through some of the user interaction challenges that we might have. But then the second part, which is related but also different, is change management. And in general, change management is something that data departments don't really do. There's no specialists, there's no people with experience on how to do it, or maybe they have the experience, but they don't have the time to invest in it. Anything from communications to inform people about how new tools have been developed and they're made available to them, training on those things, and just generally working with the end users to make sure that they are changing their workflows to go with what's been provided to them. For me, that's massive because the number of times that the data team has built something that's actually brilliant, it's great, it's what the end users need to make better decisions, to improve their day-to-day working lives, but they don't use them. And the data team either puts their hands up and say, well, that's not my problem. My job was to build the thing, I've built it, now it's someone else's problem that they don't have it. For me, it's a very unsatisfying answer because it's like, well, if we all say it's not my problem, the problem is still there, we need to solve it. But of course, it's the organization's problem for not considering change management as part of it. And then the third one, and it's probably the one that's most relevant to data product management specifically, rather than data teams more generally, is playing theater. Playing product theater, or in a recent conversation, someone described it as product washing, like just how companies do greenwashing, where they do some PR exercises like, oh, look, our employees planted trees. Please don't pay attention to all the pollution we cause in our ecosystem or the emissions we emit. Product washing is kind of similar in that companies are pretending to do the thing when in fact they're not. Now, I think unlike greenwashing, product washing usually doesn't so much happen on purpose as much as by accident. It happens because, for example, a lot of leaders hear that you need data product managers, or they hear that you need a product-centric way of doing data. They hear about data mesh and how data products is a core part of that. And so they copy some of the symptoms, the superficial elements of what it means to do product work. Like, I need to hire some product managers, or I'm going to change the job title and do a reorg. And now people that used to be engineering managers or analytics managers or project managers, now their job is data product owner. When in fact, that's not really the thing that you need to change. Or I'm going to stop calling it a data vault or a data set, and it's now a data product. Well, not really. The number of times I see people think that a data product is a purely technical artifact that, it needs to be interoperable, it needs to have certain metadata, it needs to be governed in a certain way. And I'm like, no, these are all things that might be good for a data product to have, but they're not the defining elements, right? The defining element is that there is a business problem that we have done some discovery work to identify and work with the business to say that this is valuable enough and pressing enough that we need to do something about it. And then we've gone back and done our homework to come up with a solution that might be, in some cases, a product to solve that. It's not all, you don't always solve business problems with products, right? If it's a one-off thing you need to do, you're not going to build a product for it. Whereas if I need, for example, a lead scoring model, so that every time I have new prospective customers, I can classify them in different ways, I can prioritize them for my sales team, maybe I can send them different types of emails or send them a different salesperson to go talk to them based on what the conversation needs to be about. That's something that needs to run continuously. That needs to be a product. It needs to be embedded in the workflow of the sales and marketing team, and it's not something that I should just build and then forget about and never look at again. I need to be looking at its adoption. I need to be looking at other features I can develop in order to make it even more effective. And also I need to figure out if at some point actually it's not working and I either need to pivot or actually just kill it off, because you know what, in our business, in our industry, this kind of lead scoring doesn't work. We should just have a more blunt approach to approaching our customers. Actually, we need to focus our data efforts on the supply chain side of things and reduce our costs, just as an example. For me, that is super important, but product washing gets in the way. And so we need to both educate the people doing the job of data product manager, educate them on how to do discovery, educate them on how to be user-centric, educate them on how to talk to the business, and because otherwise it's just not going to happen. And then as a bonus, and it's kind of almost an encapsulation of all the above three, I would say in general there's a big challenge that data teams are not good at talking the language of the business. Now, I don't mean they don't talk to the business, which is a separate problem, but even when they do, it's not about the thing that often matters most. And here I'm talking about finances, right? I'm talking about being able to put dollar values on initiatives, either because that we are planning to do, and so we need to get investment, we need to hire more data engineers to run the platform, because otherwise this is the cost of having downtime on that platform, or why we need to invest in better tooling because it's not serving user needs. But then also, after you've successfully made that business case and convinced the business to invest in specific things for the data team, to then be able to go back and say, just as promised, here's how much money we've made with this work. Here's the return on investment. So I know I've cheated there. I've given you 4 problems instead of 3, but I think they're all super, super important. And they're all rooted to kind of one core thing, which is we need to figure out how to actually apply product management thinking into data work, not just play theater and do product washing and miss certain key steps in how to do that. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but it was sometime in sort of mid-2021 when I came across an article about data product management. And nowadays that's not so rare as an occasion, But back then, it was like one of 4 articles in the world that even had the phrase data product management. And I read the whole thing. It was, explaining why we need data product management thinking in data teams, why there's collaboration problems with the business, why generally data teams are too focused on the technical and not enough on value creation. And I was like, wow, this is brilliant. I looked at the authors, and one of them was Nadeem, the founder of Mindfuel. And so I was like, Mindfuel, what's that? And I looked in and I was like, wow, it's a company specializing in data product management. And that was only a few months after I had first come across the term data product manager. Up until that point, I was just like, I'm a product manager, but not really, because my product is just data, which is not, it's not the same as an iOS app or a web application. I was feeling a bit like an imposter. So to see a whole company that was doing this, I was like, well, it made me feel like this is much more of a defined category than what I thought it was, and honestly, than what it was until a few years ago. So from that point on, I was kind of following Mindfuel online, seeing what they post. I was also regularly checking the careers page, but every time I would go, I'd see you need to be fluent, not just in English, but in German. So I was like, what a shame. Maybe another time. And then a few years later, we started interacting more directly. Probably, I don't even remember. I think first I'd maybe comment on things where different folks from Mindfuel were commenting on or on posts. And then one day when Max, the co-founder of Mindfuel, was in London, we kind of met for coffee and sort of hit it off since. Yeah, I'd say a little bit like with how I discovered product management, I sort of started doing it informally first, and then we formalized it. So when Delight first came out and when I first saw it, went through demos, and I really wanted to find a way to apply it to the projects that I was doing, but it wasn't a suitable time. But I was still like, I was very interested in the product, and because I had a lot of experience and my own needs as a product manager that I would love to see in a tool, I was offering a lot of feedback. And so we'd every now and then have a call just to go through some new features, and I'd give feedback on the product. So at some point, Max reached out and said, why don't we sort of make this more official? And then I was like, oh, a little bit reluctant at first. I was like, what do I need to do? I already have a job, I'm busy. But most of it was the stuff that I was doing already. Meet roughly once a month for an hour or two, go through features, give feedback, or maybe it would be a discovery session with some of the product managers at Mindfuel to understand different aspects of my workflow as a data product manager. And also from what I see, interviewing people on the podcast I'm co-hosting, or discussions at the meetups that I run that are about data product management. And so I was like, fantastic, let's do it. And it was also a chance for me to start becoming a part of Mindfuel's journey that I was really excited about, because like I said, it was something I was looking into and thinking about, but it wasn't the right time earlier on. And that's how we're here. Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I'm super excited about what's coming up. So for the last few months, I've been on top of working at CK Delta as head of product for data and AI. I've also been running my own company and kind of starting to get it off the ground. And my focus is very much data product management and helping other individuals and other organizations better adopt and apply product thinking to the way they do data. So the first thing I've done is I've developed a course, and it's not about every topic a data product manager should know about. It's very focused. It's on discovery and on valuation. In other words, how do you identify together with the business the opportunities that are going to generate the most commercial value for the business? And then secondly, how do you put a price tag on all of that? How do you put a dollar sign against the opportunities you've either identified already or the stuff you've done? Because the number of times I talk to data people, I'm like, do you know how much money you've made for your business this year? And they'll have no idea. And maybe if you're an individual data scientist in a larger team, that's okay. But if you're the manager of that team, if you're the manager of that department and you don't know, that means you're not able to get credit for the work your team is doing, to get budget for next year. It means you're not going to be as safe if there's cost cutting that comes in. But also, it probably means that you're not actually working on things that really move the needle for the business. Because if you were, it would be much easier to know how much money commercially the projects you're doing, the models you're building, the dashboards you're deploying, all are worth. So it's something I feel very strongly about. And so I've created a course. It's a live course because I think that's the best way to learn, but also because it's very interactive. I think of it more as a half course, half group coaching offering. I delivered it for the first time earlier this year, and now in January 2025 will be the first online cohort where folks from different companies are going to be coming in over a couple weeks to half-day sessions for me to kind of talk through, let's say, the theory of how to do it, but also case studies and applied examples, and then get everyone to almost take that as homework, because for me, it's about helping individuals transform the way they work. I'm not interested in just going through some content that you're going to hear about and then forget about a few weeks later. And even during the course, we'll be going through how are you actually going to apply this. And if you don't know, we'll figure it out together so that when we come back a month later to have a kind of little reunion and accountability call, everyone can share what they've been progressing on. And if they're stuck somewhere, again, get help from me. And then we'll have a few more of those accountability sessions afterwards to help them achieve that impact. So that's the main thing I'm focusing on right now. It's the main thing that's coming up, and I'm super excited to kind of welcome everyone that signed up already in January. And then after that, I'm also continuing what I've been doing up until now, which is host lots of meetups for data and AI product managers in London and Barcelona, help folks in other cities do the same. So if you're thinking of starting one, but you don't know how, I'm super happy to help you out. Just drop me a message. And then also, I'm the co-host of a podcast that actually Nadeem, the co-founder of Mindfuel, is on as well, called Data Product Management in Action. So as the name suggests, that's about interviewing folks who are data product managers on how they're doing their day-to-day. It's not about bringing in CDOs to talk about a broader vision and things at a very high level. For me, it's kind of an educational resource as well, just like the course, but it's for free. Getting others to come in and share the lessons that they've learned, the experiences they've gained, for others to learn, but also for others to realize that a lot of the challenges that we each face as data product managers, they're not unique. And I have this every time I meet someone where I'm like, it feels like it's just your organization that has these dysfunctions or these challenges, but it happens everywhere. So those are the things I'm looking forward to for next year. If anyone wants to reach out, you can drop me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me on valuefromdata.ai, or you can speak to Mindfuel. I'm super excited to be working with Mindfuel. I'm really looking forward to next year.